Eversource, you better be prepared. A repeat of the last tropical storm, Isaias, is simply intolerable. The consequences of failure, if there's a repeat of that cataclysmic disaster, will be severe. And there is no way that the people of Connecticut are going to tolerate another million outages for days on end without proper communication and preparation. We want some assurance that Eversource is staging the crews, preparing the equipment, providing management on the ground, doing everything that is necessary to make sure that there is a strong, effective response to this storm. The winds anticipated, 39 to 73 miles per hour, could have disastrous consequences along the coast or elsewhere in Connecticut. We have seen this movie before. It's a horror movie. And it didn't end well the last time. It better be better this time. And Eversource is on notice that a failure again will have consequences. I strongly supported the $30 million penalty imposed by PURA. I want to thank PURA for doing its job so well, but the point is that penalties are after the fact. What's needed before the storm is preparation. And our message to Eversource is this horror movie cannot be repeated. We've seen it. It doesn't end well. Simply pulling the covers over your head and ignoring it is no answer. The crews and equipment better be ready, and Eversource ought to be prepared not for the penalties, which maybe it regards as the cost of doing business, but for putting people above profits. Putting people above profits. And if this investor-owned company can't do it, maybe it ought to be owned by the public so that it can fulfill its duty. That may be the consequence of another failure apart from the penalties. So we hope that Eversource is doing better. We've received no response yet to our letter. The company has said that it is prepared to provide a briefing on what it is doing, but actions speak louder than words. I'm going to make the judgment on actions, not on their words about what they are doing, because we've heard a lot of the words before. So let me turn to Deputy Attorney General Peggy Chapman.
Thank you, Dick. First, I just want to thank my former boss for his kind remarks. It does feel like a return, deja vu. Here we are again together. I just want to stress that one of the issues that our office received many complaints on in previous storms is the lack of communication. And I think that Eversource needs to do a better job communicating both with customers, municipal leaders, and with state officials, and I think they know that. Municipal leaders are in the best position to know where the hot spots are, where the trees are down, where roads are blocked, where senior centers and senior housing facilities need to get back up and running. And we received a lot of feedback from municipalities about the frustration they were feeling because they didn't know where the Eversource crews were or when they would be there to deal with the most pressing issues in their town. So I do hope that Eversource has learned from previous experiences that they need to do a better job of staying in touch, coordinating with both state leaders, municipalities, and with their customers. Customers can deal with outages, but they need to know what they're dealing with and when they're going to end. So we'll, as Dick said, hope for the best and prepare for the worst. Thank you.
Eversource responded to us and he said that your words create unnecessary fear for our customers, and they said they are prepared for these storms. What is your response to their response?
I hope that they make good on their promise of being prepared. They really need to provide action more than words, and people need to understand we're facing a potential megastorm. I hope everyone will be safe, and I hope Eversource will help them to be safe.
The thing I'm hearing from a lot of people who I talk with is they're concerned that after the cleanup happens, which obviously costs utility companies money, the rates always seem to go up. Are you in favor of any kind of a moratorium or something to guarantee that customers' rates won't be raised after the storm is over?
Here's my response on rates. The rates are already too high. We have some of the highest rates, if not the highest, on the continental United States. There is no excuse, none, for imposing costs on customers for Eversource's failure to prepare. And Eversource seeking to raise rates in the wake of this storm will be met by outrage and anger and also legal action.
Senator, can you tell us about the letter, who was it sent to and what was in it?
What we said in the letter essentially is we're facing a megastorm, a repeat of the catastrophic failure after Isaias will not be tolerated. They better have the crews, equipment, managers on the ground to respond, and they better be prepared to face the costs if people lose food, prescription drugs, property, other kinds of consequences after this storm.
And that was sent to Eversource's executives or board?
Right.
Senator, on the federal level, what do you think needs to be done to, what do you see as the future of a modern grid? There's a lot of talk about putting the overhead lines underground. Don't know how feasible that is, but do you think there needs to be more investment in a modern electric infrastructure?
Part of the infrastructure program should be investment in resilience. Resilience of the grid, resilience of structures that are endangered from storms like this one along the coast and elsewhere. An infrastructure plan ought to be sufficient in magnitude and diversity to combat climate change and the consequences of these megastorms that we're seeing more and more often. Obviously, just a year ago we saw Isaias. Now we're seeing Elsa. These kinds of megastorms are becoming the new norm. An infrastructure program has to create resilience against them. And that's why I've been fighting for a program much bigger, broader, bolder than the bipartisan plan that we've seen so far. And my hope is that that bipartisan plan, if it's adopted, I hope it will be, should be followed by another even broader program that will address our energy resilience needs, more efficiency and more reliability.
And as you know, Connecticut last session did pass the Take Back Our Grid legislation, which implements a number of utility reforms. One of them is a performance-based incentive. Do you think that bill that passed here in Connecticut goes far enough to address these systemic concerns?
The performance-based incentive is the key. Rather than a guaranteed rate of return, the profits ought to be tied to performance. Performance-based rate of return needs to be strengthened even more so that the company is held accountable. That's the basic principle here. This company ought to be on notice. It will be held accountable, and performance-based rate of return is a means of constant accountability, not just in the wake of storm, but also for other kinds of service issues that may arise. Like any other service, they ought to be paid on the basis of how well they do, not a guaranteed rate of return that holds true even in the case of failure.
In terms of I know you mentioned accountability. What does that look like for the people, and also if something does go bad on your end?
Well, accountability for people means they get money back for losses. If their homes are damaged, if they need to repair structures, if they lose food or prescription drugs, or they suffer other kinds of losses, the company ought to be held accountable for it. And that's part of what the new legislation does. It is a step very much in the right direction. If Eversource fails to perform this time around, that legislation certainly ought to be heightened in terms of the penalties that are provided and the losses that can be recovered.
Do you have any concerns, similar concerns about United Illuminating Norwich Utilities?
Well, UI did better than Eversource did last time, and that better performance was reflected in the levels of penalties. They serve fewer people. I'm equally concerned, but Eversource has demonstrated by its catastrophic failure last time that it needs special scrutiny. And Eversource, let me just say again, I apologize for repeating, consumers have seen this horror show once before. They've seen the movie. It ended badly last time. There has to be a different ending now. Eversource is the company that bears the brunt of responsibility, and it will bear the major accountability. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.